And what's up with the costume? Is that a metallic fiber?
Everyone knows the suit is the most important element for any superhero. You know, minus the powers and all that. But a good superhero suit makes a statement and really sets you apart from the hundreds of other heroes you see running around out there. A lot of superheroes go through a bunch of costume changes over time, but today I wanted to specifically highlight our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man's costumes over the course of his long career. Which suit was the most powerful, and what suits probably could have used a redesign? Well, let's get into my totally official, not at all biased ranking right now.
This is something else.
So Spider-Man has been around for so long that it's allowed for a bunch of different interpretations and variations, so I wanted to start off this list with a fun one. Back in 2003, Marvel Comics published an 8-issue limited series called Marvel 1602. And no, that's not a universe designation number like 616, but rather it's referring to the year it's set. That's right, the Avengers went Elizabethan, y'all. All your favorite characters like the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and Doctor Doom all appeared in this miniseries written by the legendary Neil Gaiman. Spider-Man appeared as well, and his suit was as goofy as you'd expect. It's bright and colorful, but still has a bit of Shakespearean flair to it. Like, it's actually a really cool idea. Spider-Man is a character who oftentimes likes to draw attention to himself to disorient his enemies, so putting him in a bright suit during Elizabethan times actually fits pretty well with the character. And while it may match his acrobatic style, it's definitely not as strong as any other suit on this list. I mean, it was made in the 1600s. What do you expect? If you like this idea, you'll be happy to know that after Marvel 1602 was so popular, one of the sequel series was Spider-Man 1602 and gave us new iterations of all of Spidey's most famous rogues. Too bad this version of Peter didn't get to stick around for long. In the lead up to Spider-Verse, the villainous Morlun showed up and dispatched him with relative ease. Maybe a better suit would have helped. One thing that I appreciated about Captain America Civil War and part of Spider-Man Homecoming is how it gave us a realistic suit that a poor teenager would craft together. Sure, it looks a little wonky, but that's the point. Remember how in the original Sam Raimi trilogy, Peter Parker had that ugly suit, but then was so devastated after his uncle's demise that he suddenly became the world's greatest graphic designer and somehow learned to just sew better? Wild. The homemade suit in the MCU is simple but extremely effective. It doesn't have the bells and whistles of all the other suits on this list, but it allows Peter to stay disguised to protect his identity, makes him colorful enough to look like a superhero, which is probably what Peter was going for, and has enough upgrades like his eye goggles and web shooters to make sure he can effectively fight crime. And while the homemade suit doesn't have any fancy upgrades or powers, what it does do is make Peter Parker rely on his own ability rather than the ability of the suit. Sure, all the suits we'll talk about later are technological marvels, but a lot of them feel closer to an Iron Man suit rather than a Spider-Man suit, and I like it when the character is stripped down to the basics. It also makes cosplaying as this character much less expensive. Sometimes you just can't beat the classics. Although Spider-Man's suit has gone through a ton of evolutions and been bombarded with fancy new upgrades and styles depending on the situation, it's still Spidey's classic suit that helped us all fall in love with the character in the first place. It's pretty iconic, but also straightforward. Most of the time, the classic suit is just made of spandex or something similar, and has red gloves, boots, a belt for web cartridges, and Spidey trackers, plus the mask. Man, yeah, Peter's agile and all that, but that suit does not sound easy to put on. If you're being mugged and Peter Parker is nearby, you just have to hope he's already in his costume or else you might be in trouble. Usually, the biggest deviation over the years to the classic suit is the size of the spider that's on his chest. Sometimes it's itsy bitsy, other times it's massive. But okay guys, here's the biggest question to ask about the classic suit. How do we feel about the webbed wings underneath the arms? I know that they're an essential part of the hero's history, but I always thought they dragged the costume down a bit, but maybe that's just me. Miles Morales started as a side character, but since his debut, he's only grown more and more popular. Like, he was so well liked that when the Ultimate Universe was wiped out, it was decided that Miles would merge over to our main universe and become a major player. He's also the lead for the excellent Into the Spider-Verse movie, which I personally think stands as the greatest Spider-Man movie of all time. But let's talk about his suit. The color scheme is now black and red, rather than bright red and blue, which fits more with Morales' character as he's less in your face place than Peter Parker's Spidey tends to be. Also, the suit itself was given to him by S.H.I.E.L.D., and while it's not as advanced as a Stark suit, it does come with a powerful set of web shooters that might improve on Peter's original design. And as excited as I am to see Peter Parker in a Spider-Man suit, I just think this Ultimate suit is cooler overall. If your goal was to be a ninja, then you'll ask for the Spider-Man Stealth Suit this holiday season. This nifty design was originally created by Peter Parker in order to protect himself from Hobgoblin's sonic screams. If you want to get all sciencey, the suit warps light and sound around it, which renders it invisible. It's made from an omni-harmonic mesh that cloaks it and makes it silent. It can also mend itself if it's damaged, which is a pretty cool feature. I like this suit because it's another one that highlights the natural agility and dexterity of Spider-Man. He's supposed to move quickly and quietly, and this type of suit definitely helps him with that. I wonder if the MCU's Peter could borrow some of that Wakandan vibranium technology that makes Black Panther's suit silent while moving around. But the biggest issue with this is that even though this would turn Spidey invisible and keep him hidden from enemies, I don't think the webhead would be able to stay quiet long enough for it to be successful. Comic Spider-Man loves to quip to distract bad guys, while the MCU Spidey can't help acting like a puppy who was just injected with adrenaline. Quiet isn't necessarily the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Spider-Man. Spider-Man has such an interesting and diverse rogues gallery that really he should have a different suit for all of them. Each one of his villains usually brings something interesting to the table in terms of power and ability, and Spidey should be ready for all of them. That's why I want to highlight the Electro-Proof Suit. Man, what if I told you this suit was used to fight Kraven the Hunter? Obviously not. The Electro-Proof Suit is, of course, for Electro. Whenever Electro breaks out of prison and goes on another rampage, Spider-Man is always sure to bust out this Electro-Proof Suit, which is really just a rubber-padded version of the original. It helps in that Spidey isn't fried to a crisp when Electro inevitably shocks him. So technically this suit is pretty simple, but it's ranked here because it's an idea that allows Peter to take away the single greatest advantage his enemy has. Like, seriously, Peter should do this with everyone. Oh, the Vulture's broken out of prison again? Let's grab the suit with the jetpack and the parachute. Mysterio is on a rampage? Better grab the suit with a built-in gas mask. Venom is out of jail? Yeah, I don't know how you make a suit to combat him, but good luck though. Do you guys ever have those special moments? You know the ones I'm talking about. You'll be sitting there minding your own business and then suddenly remember how amazing Nicolas Cage's Spider-Man Noir was throughout Into the Spider-Verse? Yeah, me too. Anyway, the Noir suit is a lot of fun. The suit itself and its user heralds from Earth 90214, where Spider-Man Noir is very different from the Spider-Man we've come to know and love. And the reason I included this suit here is because of just how radically different it is compared to any other suit. Like, gone are all the bright colors and gadgets, and they're replaced with black leather and a pair of pistols. Like, it doesn't sound very Spider-Man-y, but hey, that's what happens when you have a character who sometimes lets matches burn down to his fingertips just to feel something. I think there's a certain amount of power in style, and if this was the sole criteria, then this suit would be the best, hands down. Sometimes even the Peter Tingle, the Spider Sense. Man, the MCU has really ruined that phrase, hasn't it? Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, right. Sometimes the Spider Sense just won't cut it. Yes, Peter's Spider Sense allows him to dodge a lot of bullets and gunfire with relative ease thanks to his spider-like reflexes, but sometimes Peter needs something sturdier. That's where the Spider Armor comes into play. With a pretty straightforward name, you can guess what this suit is all about. In the comics, when the new Enforcers came to New York and started using high-caliber firearms, Peter went to the drawing board and came up with the Spider Armor. It was developed at Empire State University and was made from a pseudo-metallic compound that allowed Peter to be bulletproof. That must have been a relief to just allow bullets to hit him for once. Of course, you can probably see the big problem here. The Spider Armor was much heavier than Peter was used to, and that ultimately slowed him down and made him less agile, which again is kind of his whole thing. Man, nothing can ever be easy for Peter Parker, can it? Right off the bat, this isn't your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. This is your mean, ruthless, terrifying Spider-Man. The Spider-Man on Earth 8351 is extremely different from the Spider-Man we're used to. This version is a top Black Ops assassin who works alongside Wolverine. This Spider-Man suit looks rather villainous in its design and is definitely no nonsense. This is a suit that if you see it, it's probably going to be one of the last things you see, you know what I mean? The big difference in this suit is that on top of web shooters shooting webs, they also also fire bullets, which automatically makes this version of the Webhead incredibly lethal. Like, there's one scene where a villain laughs after cutting Spider-Man's webs, only for Spidey to shoot him in the face. Ouch. You pair this new, dangerous suit with a now uber-serious Peter Parker, and you got yourself one new dangerous threat. You don't necessarily look at Spider-Man's suit and think sleek, but for this one, you might make an exception. This is the Future Foundation suit, and its mostly all-white design with black trim certainly gives it an eye-raising appearance. But the suit itself is quite powerful. It's made from a new generation of unstable molecules and thus comes with a bunch of unique abilities, like being able to self-repair itself if it's damaged. On top of that, the suit can change its appearance in a flash, turning from its all-white design to battle armor or street clothes with just a single thought. That also means that if Peter is ever feeling nostalgic, he can morph the suit into his familiar red and blue design, but also keep all the upgrades the Future Foundation suit comes with. It also has a pretty nifty stealth mode, which makes it even harder to detect. Overall, this is probably one of the best and easiest suits to manage. Can I sign up for the Future Foundation? No? Okay. The Fear Itself crossover in Marvel Comics pitted our favorite Avengers fighting Serpent, an Asgardian fear deity who caused a global panic on Earth while trying to reclaim the Asgardian throne that he felt his brother Odin stole from him. Classic Odin. Anyways, a fun little detail to come out of this event was a new suit for Spider-Man. When facing an Asgardian deity, a normal spandex suit just wasn't going to cut it. The new suit was created by Tony Stark from the metal Uru, which savvy comic readers know is also what Thor's hammer is made out of. It's light blue in color with glowing web trim, and he sorta looks like he belongs in a neon rave of some sort. Obviously, this was an incredibly sturdy suit, and it was soon blessed by Odin himself. So yeah, although this suit would never hide itself in a crowd and blend in, it's a reliably offensive suit that can go toe-to-toe with Asgardians. I think everyone by now is familiar with the Symbiote suit and its relationship with Spider-Man. After Spidey merged with the gooey black substance, he found himself with an incredible new suit that was a considerable upgrade to what came before. Besides a sleeker, all-black look, Peter found himself stronger, faster, and more durable with this new suit. Also, it produced its own webbing, which was probably a huge relief on Peter's time and peace of mind. You know how many nights he probably sat up concocting new webbing for his web shooters? You know how many times he was fighting a villain only to discover he was out of web cartridges? This suit solved both those problems. And they both lived happily ever after. Or, okay fine, we know that's not what happened. Eventually, the suit formed an unhealthy attachment to Peter, there was a huge fight involved, and yada yada yada, we got to see Tom Hardy sit in a giant lobster tank. Yes, even in the future, there will still be a Spider-Man. Miguel O'Hara is the titular Spider-Man from the year 2099, and as you'd expect from a futuristic suit, it has significant upgrades. But before mentioning those, can I just read the room and see what you guys think of the coloring and design for Miguel's costume? It certainly makes an impact and stands out, all while basically switching the primary and secondary colors of red and blue. On top of being extremely durable, it also has powerful GPS and infrared sensors, boot jets, hologram projectors, and the ability to shoot explosives out of the web cartridges. Plus, it can glide through the air thanks to an airfoil cape that emits a stream of anti-gravity particles. What do you get when you put Doc Ock's mind in Peter Parker's body? The superior Spider-Man, that's what. And you would think that Doc Ock would immediately use this opportunity to go on a villain spree, but that's not what happened. The villain wanted to prove he was an even better Spider-Man than Peter Parker and turned over a new leaf. And while Peter liked to usually rely on his own agility and dexterity to win fights, Doc Ock's Spider-Man leaned into the tech side of things, making a suit that combined the multi-limbed aesthetic Otto was used to with powerful upgrades like stronger webbing, and gloves and boots with retractable talons. Peter Parker might always be the better Spider-Man, but it's hard to argue that Doc Ock made the better Spidey suit. The final two will be MCU suits, and it's mainly because they took Stark technology and put them in a Spidey suit, which in the MCU made them the most powerful suits ever. Like, Tony Stark recruited Peter Parker to help him fight Captain America, but couldn't have his new protege show up in a baggy sweatshirt. So at some point in time, probably overnight because that's when Tony does his best work, he designed a Spider-Man suit that looked a lot like a plain Spider-Man suit, but enhanced it with a ton of new upgrades and features. Like, it had gadgets that allowed Peter to shoot different types of webs, glider, arm things, a parachute, and even an advanced AI system that could control his suit for him. Sure, there was also an insta-kill mode, which is a little questionable given that Peter is just a teen, but it just highlights how powerful this suit was overall. Also, I know that this doesn't really affect the power level of the suit and is more of an aesthetic thing, but I like how Tony took the time to make the eyes expressive. Sure, it's all done with CGI, and there's an argument of how Sam Raimi's more natural suit is better, but it's hard to argue that this first Stark suit is one of the most powerful. Yeah, take everything I said about that last suit, but just make it an even more of an Iron Man suit and call it the Iron Spider. Like, really, the only big difference between the Iron Spider and the first Stark Spidey suit is the giant tentacle arms that make a big difference in any fight. Other than that, you can just assume that it has all the same gadgets, only it's probably more durable and looks even cooler. Like, come on, we now get to say the Iron Spider was in the MCU. How awesome is that? Iron Spider takes the #1 spot hands down. The movie isn't out yet, so I didn't want to put it on this list, but I'm so excited for Spider-Man's Doctor Strange-esque suit in No Way Home. A suit with a technological superiority of both Stark and Peter's mind, with a magical upgrade thanks to Doctor Strange. Yeah, that's going to be an amazing suit. I can't wait.